Hello and welcome to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host. We've got a great show today, and we've got a great guest. Yeah, I would say he's come all the way from Midland, my hometown, but actually you drove up from Monroe because you were visiting your parents. But I would say live from Midland, Michigan, we have James Holman, who is the Director of Fiscal Policy for the Mackinac Center. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chuck.
Oh, thanks for coming down. Welcome to the show. How about a very, very quick thumbnail explanation on what the Mackinac Center is?
We are a state-based free market think tank commenting on Michigan state and local government, trying to push things in the right direction. Check us out at mackinac.org. And if what you see resonates with you, consider becoming a member.
All right, so let's get straight to the truth here. Mm-hmm. You are in a building that used to be the old Woolworths, as I remember,
Yes.
because being an old Midland guy. And I remember getting a tour from a member of your staff who stopped, and he showed us their office, and I said, this is the location for the old dollar record bin when I was in high school. This is where I got Big Brother and the Holding Company and all the Frank Zappa albums.
That's a good find.
It is, yeah, well, it's good vibes. So,
by the way, did you know that there's still Woolworths in existence?
No.
I was in New Zealand, and they're still there. They're pharmacies now.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I was like, that's interesting. I used to work at a place like that.
Well, we were just in Japan, and I'll tell you what's in Japan, 7-Elevens. Mm-hmm. They're very big. They're all over. And, I remember the 7-Eleven in Midland, again, at the corner of, I believe it's Jefferson and Sugnet.
That's correct. Still there.
Yeah.
Thriving trade to this day.
I'm surprised they were able to stay in business after my group left town. But, yeah. All right, so let's... where to begin? We've got the Whitmer administration. Has she got a big enough folder to hide behind? I mean, when you think about it, look, I'm not here. That's going to be the defining picture of her career, which is only fair.
Yeah, it is fair because I think she's got great instincts. She kind of knows how to run and what her advantages are. She's great with the slogan, but her problem is her record. She does not have the record to back up her slogan. It's something that she also wants to hide from. And you can see this from her headline, fix the roads.
No, yeah. That wasn't it. We can say it. Fix the
damn roads.
Roads, right? Yeah. This is, But
by the way, it's a powerful slogan. It fits in your head. It's got there. It has that a little bit of an edge to make things stick. Good slogan.
Except for one thing.
But you have to actually do it.
Yeah, 7 years in, and she hadn't done it.
Well, and the weird thing is like, it should have been easy for her. At the time when she got elected, we were replacing roads at roughly the same rate they fell apart. And which means that you just need a little bit more money, and you've got a long-term path to continued improvement. But she let a dispute over whether you need to raise taxes in order to get more money for the roads derail progress. They found her all the money that she needed to get to that point and just declare victory and win, and she refused to do it. That's a huge problem, and it's a huge mistake, and we're still suffering from that.
Yeah, because the damned, not only the damned roads, but the blessed roads, they are all not fixed. Now there was another governor whose name escapes me. I can't remember his name, whose phrase was promises kept. Yeah, John Engler, the great John Engler. Yeah. So promises kept, and she can't do that. She still want to run for president?
So my understanding, and this applies to her, applies to anyone, is that if you can tell yourself as an elected official or someone who's interested in politics, if you can tell yourself a story that gives you a 5% or greater chance of being president, you run for president. I can only think of one person who I'd say was an exception to that, and that was Mitch Daniels.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, well, the next thing you know, you could get some computer executive become governor. I mean, who knows,
Although I think one thing you can learn from the Trump presidency is that you have a huge advantage if you have a relationship with the American people before you run. Also, height's apparently a thing that really matters. So my dark horse candidate is Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the thing about Shaq is that you got to, as long as you're willing to you just get under the basket and stay there like the man mountain, and everybody bounces off you, and when a ball comes, you just flip it in. Yeah.
I assume that's a political lesson too.
It certainly is that. I mean, if I could run for president, I mean, I'm 6'2", and I could say my dogs like me. Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad one. My dogs like me. So the Whitmer years, in some ways you can say that Gretchen Whitmer is kind of the Leonid Brezhnev of Michigan politics. It's definitely been an era of stagnation. I mean, there's no out now. I mean, how many indicators show that Michigan has fallen behind?
So that is the problem right now with Michigan's trajectory, is that the country is growing. Michigan is not. In fact, we've got the second highest unemployment rate right now. You look at job growth over the past 2 years, and we've clearly fallen behind. We're losing people to other states. That's a great indication that things are better elsewhere in the country. And Michigan should be attracting a lot more people because Illinois is falling apart. But the people who are leaving Illinois aren't coming to Grand Rapids. They're going to Nashville. They're going to Indianapolis. That was an opportunity for us, because if you look at some of the states that are doing really well, Utah and Idaho, one of the reasons that they're doing really well is they've got good policy and they're close to California, where also people are leaving.
What's interesting about California, as I'm reading, is that, you think that as the Californians moved north, they took their politics with them into Washington and Oregon, but they don't seem to be taking their politics with them to Texas.
So politics is pretty sticky, because even with people going to Washington for, 3 decades or more from California, Washington didn't have an income tax until recently. And even then, according to the Supreme Court there, it's not an income tax. It's a excise tax on income.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it is really tough to change a political culture. There is established institutions that lead to state politics. Yes, voters ultimately drive policy, and if you are not changing your political opinion when you move to a new place, then yes, you can drive some changes. And if you believe in a lot of bad policy, you can drive policy to the worst. But I'm pretty optimistic that people adapt to their new homes, that the political institutions that have led states to success will continue and will change the people who live there. Because when you pack up and move, that changes you too. And your institutions that you're a part of change who you are and how you think of the world.
Well, I know that school-age children, that's fallen. They're talking about this in Birmingham. All over Oakland County, is it the schools just don't have the kids as many. So the answer is to pay the teachers more because
Well, that's an interesting thing about school finance, is underappreciated, which is the number of kids is going down. Sales tax, property taxes, the rest of the money that we use to fund schools, that keeps going up. So schools should be in a great position to do better, to at least spend more on fewer kids. And what we're seeing is that this is not generating better outcomes for kids.
Well, one thing I did, days in the legislature, is that I had, and I'm going to thank you guys for this, actually, is that I came down with Bell's palsy. Which meant,
I don't think we gave that to you.
No, you did not.
Okay.
But is that my side of my face totally paralyzed? I couldn't even talk like that. And no, I've fully recovered. But I'm not going out to So what am I going to do? What I did is I went to your site and I downloaded all the teacher contracts from Birmingham schools and Bloomfield schools, my district, because, what else am I doing? And I'd been hearing a lot of stuff about, we haven't had raises in 90 years and all that. And I taught myself how to use Microsoft Excel, and I entered it, one by one, all the different 3-year lanes and steps, and then calculated it through. Thanks to you guys. And I found out that no, there were some of those lanes that were getting 30% raises in the middle of the Great Recession. Yeah. And I realized then, how much money are you spending on labor? Well, I think Bloomfield, and this is some years ago now, we're spending 87% on labor. In Birmingham was 92%.
Yeah.
So that's why you
huge
don't
huge pension costs, which they don't control, but huge pension costs.
Well, you've got to we tried to make people control that, actually. I remember.
Well, and actually there has been success in pension funding, at least for retiree health care benefits.
Yes.
It used to be pay as you go, kick the can down the road to the future taxpayers. They cut the costs. They offered new employees better benefits, and they set aside money to pay, they started to set aside money to pay for the benefits there.
Yes.
15 years since, we've actually fully funded the cost for all those benefits now. Huge things. No one else in the country is doing that. It's a great thing. That is going to help people in the future.
And you can say thank you.
Yes, yes.
Because that was something we worked on.
And
yes,
it's a far-sighted thing, and worked on it. Did some good policy for that, and then lawmakers since have stuck with it, which is weird because a lot of times the way that these places get into pension problems is there always seems to be a better use for a dollar than putting it into the pension system.
Yes.
But they did.
Well,
Good. Great.
Well, I learned it all at Oakland County, basically from Bob Dadow.
Yeah.
And so, when Bob took us aside, I want to say in 02, 03, said, we don't have unlimited money anymore. And we're like, yeah, April Fools. No, really, look. And that's when we realized what we owed on pension and GASB and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I learned all that. So anybody who's not funding it is making promises to their new employees that there's no way they can keep. Mm-hmm. I said, what? We're kicking the can. We've run out of road and we've run out of can. Yes, the schools, I'm glad that they're not all houses of cards because that's where they were. But the Whitmer administration seems bound and determined to roll the clock back to the 1970s, which was its own era of stagnation to begin with. God bless Bill Milliken.
Yes, so there's just a number of policies. I mean, if you look at her primary agenda, it is largely giving money to the Democratic political interests. And you see this with prevailing wages. Home health care workers now have to contribute to unions, even though the unions do nothing for home health care
workers. Oh, they got that through, did they?
They got that through. That's unfortunate. I don't know if it's kicked in yet or if there's some administrative burdens, but that was a law that got passed. I mean, there were bills last session that would have had taxpayers pay every union member's dues with payments cycled through their own union members' tax filings. It was a crazy thing. That one didn't pass. I think that was a bridge too far, and it should be a bridge too far. But there were just a lot of favors. And you saw this with green energy, too, which we're now going to eliminate all of our fossil fuel plants and move to wind and solar, regardless of the cost, regardless of the intermittency, regardless if they even plan to do that. That's going to drive up energy prices. That's going to make energy less reliable. And people are going to suffer the consequences.
Jennifer Granholm should be happy.
Yes.
I mean, that was her big deal.
That was her big deal. And that was always frustrating to me that she became energy secretary when she had terrible energy policies. She had green mandates, and then she subsidized a whole bunch of green energy firms that never paid off. And that was enough of a track record to become energy secretary.
And what did those firms do for her when she left office? Yeah. And then she had her TV show till Al Gore sold it out to Kuwait or Bahrain or whatever. Yeah. Al Gore made the money. I don't know that she did, but yeah. So Germany is showing how you can quickly deindustrialize when you embrace green policies. Yeah,
and so Michigan manufacturing had been doing all right. Like the losses that we had from 2000 to 2009 were over. Things were on the upswing. I don't know that they were employing more people, but they were definitely producing more things. Our Michigan companies were staying at the competitive edge. And I don't know if that's going to be the case with all the uncertainty facing them right now, especially if you're unionized, your employees no longer have right to work protections. This compels unions to take stronger steps, not in the companies or in the best interest of the employees, but for political reasons, as you can see.
Well, the unions are political organizations themselves, and their guys have to get reelected, and they get reelected by bringing home the bacon, just like any politician. Yeah. But we're going to have to take a break here and take a short break. We'll be right back. We're talking to James Holman, who is the Director of Fiscal Policy for the Mackinac Center. Don't go away. We'll be right back here on Eye on Oakland. Welcome back to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host. We're talking with James Holman, the Director of Fiscal Policy for the Mackinac Center up in my hometown of Midland. And I just want to say real quick that we've been talking about the various disincentives for doing business and activity in Michigan, and the unfortunate consequences of it. We're falling behind. Those of us who were around during the lost decade and our attempts to get it going again understand that. So what will it take to get Michigan moving again?
So we can look at the states that are doing well. A lot of states in the South. I mean, I wish I could tell a more interesting story, but red states seem to be doing so much better than blue states. And they're doing better because they're getting the basics right. You don't need to have fancy, exotic economic development policy to do well. You need low taxes, light burdens. I mean, Michigan is one of the leaders, unfortunately, in requiring a government permission slip in order to work. There are policies that other states are doing that make it easier to attract people. One of those is called universal license recognition. So if you're a licensed nurse in Illinois and you find a job in Michigan, you don't have to go through the bureaucratic processes of applying for a new license or jumping through the new hoops that the state requires. So there's a lot of policies. We have an agenda on our site at mackinac.org. There's all sorts of things that the state can do. Part of it is repealing the bad laws that have just been enacted, but there are some good laws that we can pass right now. I mean, a simple thing is just letting people keep more of what they earn. The state government is collecting more from its taxes, and it can easily afford to let people keep more of what they earn by lowering the income tax.
Yes. Well, there's a great piece on a website called chuckmoss.com called I think it's the equation or something about how all the stuff we talk about of waste and fraud, everybody focuses on that. But who gets the money? Mm-hmm. Where does the money go? Because somebody gets paid for every penny that seems to be burned. It's not burned. It goes to somebody, and that person is shall we say, a constituent of that system.
If you look at the governor and the Democratic trifectas over the past 2 years, top priorities, you might think it's about schools and roads. It's not.
It's not.
It is corporate welfare. We have authorized $4.7 billion in select business subsidies over the past 2 years. And it's pork. There's $3 billion worth of pork projects in the state budgets that have been approved. And both of those things are wastes of taxpayer money that could be better spent elsewhere or left in people's pockets.
Well, MEDC, Michigan Economic Development, is nothing but pork for feeding politically powerful constituencies, and that's all it is. Mm-hmm. And I was not of that opinion before, but I'm definitely opinion now. But of course, you've got to be able to have money to let people have junkets to the Middle East, Governor. County executive. So I mean, I guess it's a nice vacation, but falconry. Falconry.
I mean, maybe they can find a good way to sell state products. I don't know. I do feel like if you're a foreign dignitary, even if, for the state government, you get treated pretty well when you go abroad.
I guess I was an indignitary, so yeah. And the only is we did have a legislative trip to Israel, but it wasn't that. It was the only place I really went abroad much when I was in the legislature was Canada, and I was wearing my Red Wing shirt, so that didn't get me anywhere. So what about will we ever be able to get right to work reinstated? Will we ever be able to get rid of get prevailing wage? Will we ever be able to get back to where we were in 2015?
Absolutely, and I think this for a simple reason, which is if you look at where those policies were in the 90s, it was impossible. Like there was no way lawmakers were ever going to vote for that. But people made the case. They built support for it. The lawmakers ran on these issues, and when the right political opportunity came, they voted for it. These were tough votes. They weren't easy, but it was clear that something that was politically impossible was well within the Overton window of political acceptability. And I don't think that window has shifted back. We didn't go from being unenactable to impossible again. There was a reaction, there was a partisan reaction, but when you look at what the people who were sponsoring these laws said about them, they were just making stuff up. They weren't making the case to constituents. They weren't making the case for voters about why it was important for mandatory union payments or why government contracts needed to be more expensive. They just said, we're going to pretend that favors to our constituents are
thumb goes down.
Yeah. Are somehow benefits to the public. And so when the politics shifts, I think those are enactable. I hope that they are. These are good policies. We shouldn't be paying more for government construction projects. People should have the freedom to drop out of a union and not be compelled to pay them.
Yeah, well, as someone who voted for right to work, and I got asked, back in caucus, I guess I can reveal it, are you okay with right to work? Do you have any problem with it? And I said, yeah, I do have one problem. Why can't we do prevailing wage while we're at it right now? That had to wait.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now one thing is that on the agenda, talking about budget reform, year of the budget, I mean, this is a sort of a weird question of mine, but how many ongoing projects have they started with one-time money?
Oh, that is a really good question.
Thank you.
Because you look at so the state government under the Snyder administration said that there are some things that are ongoing, and there are some things that are one-time. And the one-time things aren't always one-time, but they say this is special money, and you shouldn't expect it to be in the next budget.
Yes.
A lot of the times they're in the next budget.
Yes. Well, the thing is that once again, when Snyder came in and John Nixon was the state budget director, and he came into us as sort of savages, like in the old movie, pulling out a Zippo lighter, and we all, ooh, he said, "Well, boys, never use one-time money for ongoing costs," and we were, ooh. Ooh, that's heavy juju there, buddy. But the deal is that that's all Granholm ever did.
Yeah.
And so that became our mantra, and so that is being sort of ignored. And so you start a program with your one-time money, and the one-time money goes away, and guess what? Now you're in a potentially deficit situation.
Yes. So to the question, I think it's less than $5 billion. I don't know how much, but it would be more than one less than $5 is how much is in the budget that's allocated to one-time payments. But they've gotten sloppy about it too. So pork projects, which are, look, these are one-time things. They're established in boilerplate. This is what you're going to spend the money on, and there's no expectation for this project to get funding the next year. They're not listed as one-time funding. So
well, if you are a political machine, you reward people by paying them one way or another, a job, a contract, or whatever. And this is how a political machine works. They tax money from everybody, and then they distribute it to their buddies, and that's how they get elected. And this is a classic political machine.
Yes, politics works this way, but this is not how our state constitution is supposed to dictate how these things work. In fact, the state constitution, again, it requires, in order for money to be used for local or private purposes, 2/3 approval in both chambers, and they haven't been getting that. It's not a thing that's been challenged before, I think, but it's something that our constitutional framer said, look, there should be higher standards when you want to bend the political process to favor some legislators' direct district. I think that's appropriate policy. It's the way things are supposed to work, but our lawmakers are just not interested in paying attention to that, which is unfortunate because, again, we have a lot of great constitutional principles that are just kind of thrown to the side, which is inappropriate, and our legislators should care about the state constitution too.
Well, as I recall, you take an oath to the state constitution. We can look back on the ancient wisdom of our constitutional framers, George Romney. But it is it's true. But if you don't care and you're throwing all the rules out so that you can, run a corrupt political machine, and by corrupt, I'm talking about legally corrupt. I haven't seen any laws being broken, but that's not the way it's supposed to work, and the money just kind of comes out the leaky pipe. You can do that. That's another disincentive for doing business in a state where they say it's the rule of law, but it's really the rule of lawyers or judges.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's not the way things are supposed to go. I mean, let's get back to basic constitutional principles. This is a government that is supposed to be interested in the public's benefit, and our lawmakers are supposed to discuss what that is, given that it's a tricky contest, but at least have that as a North Star idea for all of their actions. And there is a perennial political desire for it not to be that. H.L. Mencken.
The great H.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know the one
There's so many.
Yes. Government is a broker and pillage, and every election is an advance auction of stolen goods.
Ooh.
That's one way of viewing politics, but the other one is what our Justice Thomas Cooley kind of viewed, which is the government exists for the public's benefit, and anything that the government does to advance someone's private interest is inherently unconstitutional. And by the way, that is a ruling that he made in the state of Michigan that is still active. It's just kind of been ignored.
Well, what is it? I got quote. There's MERS, which is the Lansing news service, and they have quote of the day, and they'll have quote of the month and quote of the year. I made quote of the year once.
Okay, what was it?
It said, "There go the people. I had better follow them because, after all, I'm their leader."
Yes.
Which I thought I was quoting a French guy, but it turns out it was apocryphal. So the quote is really mine now. But yeah, so if the people go a certain way, enough of the politicians will have to follow. You get tired of us being, at the bottom and our kids having to go somewhere else.
Well, that's the populist sentiment, which is, I don't care whether these things are right or wrong. I care about whether enough people are headed that way. Famous William Jennings Bryan.
Yes.
I am for free silver because the people of Nebraska are for free silver. I will look up the arguments later. It's the inherent thing of populism, which is honestly a good political strategy as long as none of your lawmakers are saying popular things. Look, people have a vote. Like we should care what they think. And if no one's representing a big or a large number of people, yes, it brings up an avenue for populism to work and work the way that it's supposed to. It's not inherently a wrong concept. We do want our government to respond to what people actually think, not what they should think.
Yes, well, that's why we have supposedly have the elections. Well, Jim, I'm gonna take a quick side trip here. I want to ask you a Midland question.
Sure.
Are they going to refill Sanford Lake?
Yes. The last so one of my colleagues lives out there. It's really something that everyone.
I grew up water skiing on Sanford Lake.
Yeah. So it's been empty since 2020
when
the floods when the dams broke. Apparently, the last legal challenge has gone away, so they're gonna proceed. I don't know if it's filled next year, but they're gonna try. I think
it's for me, driving north and going over Sanford. This is a lake near
Sanford
Midland.
Creek now. Yeah,
it's the Tittabawassee River. It was a lake we used to go on, and now it's just an empty bed, and it would be as if you saw Lake St. Clair suddenly being just a little river going through. So they are going to do it. Well, yes. Good. Well, hopefully Midland and Michigan in general, we can, like I said, get moving again. This is a free slogan for anyone who wants it.
Well, I said that Michigan's falling behind. There are some places in Michigan that are doing really well.
Let me guess.
Northern part of the Lower Peninsula is adding people, and it hasn't done that in a century. It's when people were locked in their homes, they're like, I would rather live in forests, I guess. And so that's been kind of a growing area of the state. West Michigan has been doing all right as well. I mean, still a very manufacturing-heavy kind of place. So there are places for growth, and there are places that can grow even despite some bad policies.
Well, not Flint, but yeah, I'm mother's family and my wife mother's from Flint.
My mom's from Flint as well.
Yeah. So, we're going to run out of time here, so I'm going to have to leave it at that. James Holman, who is the Director of Fiscal Policy at the Mackinac Center. It'd be nice to keep our kids here. They may not go to Chicago, but, like I said, I always hate to lose to India, but to lose to Indiana really hurts. I'm Chuck Moss. Thank you for joining us here on Eye on Oakland.